I stood on a rickety stepladder, stretching to hang a "Congratulations Graduate" banner across our living room. The house buzzed with nervous energy as I prepared for Claire's party. My daughter was about to embark on a new chapter of her life, and I was determined to make this celebration perfect. "Mom, we're home." Claire's voice rang out, followed by the slam of the front door. I climbed down, brushing my hands on my jeans. "In here, sweetie." Claire burst into the room, her face glowing with excitement. My son Mike trailed behind, his usual teenage nonchalance momentarily replaced by a proud grin. "Mom, you won't believe it." Claire waved an envelope in the air. "I got the scholarship." My heart swelled. "Oh, honey, that's wonderful." I pulled her into a tight hug, then reached out to ruffle Mike's hair. Both my babies, making me so proud. Mike ducked away, but I caught the smile he tried to hide. Yeah. Claire's the golden child. We get it." "Oh, stop," I laughed, giving him a playful swat. "Now, who wants to help me finish decorating?" Claire's eyes widened as she took in the half-finished decorations. "Mom, you didn't have to go to all this trouble." "Nonsense," I said, waving away her concern. "It's not every day my daughter graduates high school and gets a full ride to her dream school." As we worked, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of melancholy. Frank should have been here, helping us celebrate. But he'd made his choice years ago when he walked out on our family. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. "I'll get it," Mike called, already halfway to the door. I heard the door open, followed by a familiar voice that made my blood run cold. "Hey, sport, long time no see." "Frank," I froze, my hand clutching a string of fairy lights. Claire shot me a worried glance. "Dad?" Mike's voice was a mix of confusion and hope. "What are you doing here? Can't a father come to celebrate his daughter's big day?" Frank's voice grew louder as he approached the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. When Frank appeared in the doorway, I plastered on a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Frank, this is unexpected." He grinned, that same charming smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it just made my stomach churn. "Come on, Susie. You didn't think I'd miss this, did you?" Before I could respond, Claire stepped forward. "Dad, it's good to see you, but we weren't expecting you." Frank's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, I'm here now, and it looks like you could use some help." He gestured at the unfinished decorations. I opened my mouth to protest, but the delicate glass plate I was holding slipped from my fingers. It shattered on the hardwood floor, the crash echoing through the sudden silence. Frank tsked, shaking his head. "Still as clumsy as ever, Susie? Maybe if I was around more." Something inside me snapped. "Don't you dare, Frank. Don't you dare waltz in here after all this time and act like you have any right to be part of this family." His smile turned cold. "I have every right. I'm their father." "A father who left us high and dry," I shot back. "A father who missed every important moment in their lives for the past 3 years. Frank's facade cracked, revealing a flash of anger. "You're the one who kicked me out, remember? After you cheated on me." The words exploded from me, years of pent-up hurt and rage finally finding release. Claire gasped. Mike's face paled. Frank's eyes darted between our children and me. "Now, Susie, let's not air our dirty laundry in front of the kids." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, now you care about the kids? Where was that concern when you were sneaking around behind my back?" The room crackled with tension. Claire and Mike stood frozen, wide-eyed witnesses to the unraveling of their parents' carefully maintained pretense. Frank's jaw clenched. "I think we need to talk. Privately." I glanced at my children's shocked faces, then back at Frank. This was supposed to be Claire's day, and here I was, letting him ruin it all over again. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "Kids, why don't you go to your rooms for a bit? Your father and I need to have a little chat." As Claire and Mike reluctantly left the room, I turned to face Frank, my heart pounding. Whatever he had come here for, I was determined not to let him destroy our lives again. The morning after Frank's unexpected visit, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop screen in disbelief. My savings account balance glared back at me, mocking my attempts at financial stability. How could it have dropped so drastically? "Mom, have you seen my blue sweater?" Claire's voice floated down from upstairs. I closed the laptop with a snap. "Check the laundry basket, honey." As I heard Claire rummaging around, my mind raced. Bills, groceries, car repairs. I'd been juggling it all since Frank left, but this was different. A sinking feeling in my gut told me Frank might be involved. The phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was my mother, Evelyn. "Susan, dear, how are you holding up after yesterday's drama?" I sighed, twirling the phone cord around my finger. "I'm fine, Mom. It's just, something's not right with my finances. What do you mean? Her voice sharpened with concern. There's money missing from my savings. A lot of money. There was a pause on the other end. Susan, you don't think Frank... I don't know what to think anymore, I admitted, my voice cracking. Listen to me, Evelyn said firmly. You've relied on that man for far too long. It's time you take control of your own life. Her words stung, but I knew she was right. But how, Mom? I'm barely keeping my head above water as it is. One step at a time, dear. First, you need to find out what happened to that money. As we talked, a memory surfaced, Frank, years ago, insisting we set up joint accounts for convenience. I'd agreed, trusting him completely. What a fool I'd been. I'll look into it, I promised, just as Claire bounded into the kitchen. Found it, she announced triumphantly, holding up her sweater. Her smile faded as she caught my expression. Mom? What's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, sweetie. Just talking to Grandma about some boring adult stuff. Claire's eyes narrowed. She was too perceptive for her own good sometimes. Is it about Dad? I hesitated, then nodded. No use lying to her. Sort of, but don't worry about it, okay? You focus on school. She sat down across from me, her face serious. Mom, I'm not a kid anymore. You can talk to me. For a moment, I was tempted to unload everything. The missing money, my suspicions about Frank, the constant struggle to keep our family afloat. But looking at her young, earnest face, I couldn't bring myself to burden her. I know, sweetie, and I appreciate that. But right now, the best thing you can do is concentrate on your studies. This scholarship is a big deal. Claire opened her mouth to argue, but just then, Mike stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and touzle-haired. Morning, he grunted, heading straight for the coffee maker. I raised an eyebrow. Since when do you drink coffee? He shrugged, pouring himself a cup. Since I decided I want to be a lawyer. Claire and I exchanged surprised glances. A lawyer? I asked. Where did this come from? Mike took a sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. After yesterday? I want to help people like us, Mom. People who get screwed over by jerks like Dad. My heart swelled with pride and sadness. My children were growing up so fast, shaped by the very struggles I'd tried to shield them from. That's wonderful, Mike, I managed, blinking back tears. As we sat there, the three of us sharing a moment of unexpected connection, my phone buzzed. A text from Frank. We need to talk about the kids' college funds. Meet me for lunch? My stomach churned. College funds? What college funds? We'd barely discussed Claire's education expenses, let alone Mike's. I looked up at my children, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Whatever game Frank was playing, I couldn't let him hurt them again. I had to find out what was going on, no matter the cost. Kids, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I need to run an errand. Will you be okay on your own for a bit? As they nodded, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. It was time to find out just how deep Frank's deception ran. I sat in my car outside Frank's office, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. After days of digging, I'd uncovered more than just missing money. There was a trail of deceit that led straight to a woman named Diane. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and marched into the building. Frank's secretary tried to stop me, but I brushed past her, barging into his office. Susan? Frank looked up, startled. What are you doing here? I slammed a folder on his desk, explaining where our children's college funds went, apparently. His face paled as he flipped through the documents, bank statements, credit card bills, and a damning photo of him with a blonde woman outside a hotel. How did you? He started, but I cut him off. Save it, Frank. I want answers, and I want them now. He leaned back, his shock morphing into that infuriatingly smug smile I'd grown to hate. Come on, Susie, you're overreacting. It's just business. Business? I spat. Is that what you call draining our accounts to wine and dine your mistress? Frank's eyes narrowed. Diane is not my mistress. She's a valuable business associate. Oh, I'm sure she's very valuable, I retorted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Valuable enough to risk your children's future? For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, but it quickly disappeared. The kids will be fine. Claire has her scholarship, and Mike. Mike wants to be a lawyer, I interrupted. Did you know that? Of course not, because you haven't been around. Frank stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Now listen here, Susan. What I do with my money is none of your business anymore. It is when it affects our children, I shouted, my composure finally cracking. Just then, his office door burst open. Claire and Mike stood there, their faces a mix of shock and anger. Dad? Claire's voice trembled. What's going on? Frank strained of color. Claire, Mike, this isn't... We heard everything, Mike said, his jaw clenched. How could you? I hadn't wanted them to find out like this, but there was no going back now. Kids, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for you to... No, Mom, Claire interrupted, stepping forward. Don't apologize. You're not the one who should be sorry. Frank tried to regain control of the situation. Now, let's all calm down and discuss this like adults. Adults? Mike scoffed. You mean like how you've been acting? Stealing from us and lying about it? The room crackled with tension as Frank looked from face to face, realizing he was cornered. I can explain everything, he said weakly. Save it, Claire snapped. We don't want to hear your excuses. I felt a surge of pride mixed with heartache. My children were standing up for themselves for our family, but at what cost? Frank's demeanor suddenly changed, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. Now you listen here, all of you. I've worked hard to provide for this family, and I won't be judged by a bunch of ungrateful. That's enough, I shouted, stepping between Frank and the kids. We're leaving, and Frank, don't you dare come near us again. As we turned to go, Frank called out, This isn't over, Susan. You can't keep my children from me. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I once loved. Watch me. We left Frank's office, the three of us united in a way we hadn't been in years. As we stepped into the sunlight, I realized this was just the beginning. Frank wouldn't give up easily, and we had a long fight ahead of us. But looking at Claire and Mike, their faces set with determination, I knew we'd face whatever came next together. For the first time in years, I felt strong, truly strong. Frank had underestimated me, us, for the last time. As we drove home in tense silence, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives had just changed irrevocably. The truth was out, but at what cost? And what would Frank do next? I sat across from Carol at our favorite cafe, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of lukewarm coffee. The events of the past few days swirled in my mind like a relentless storm. I just don't know what to do next, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Carol reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Susan, you've already done the hardest part. You stood up to Frank. I nodded, but the weight on my shoulders felt heavier than ever. But what now? He's still their father. I can't just cut him out completely, can I? You can, if he's a threat to your family's well-being, Carol said firmly. Have you considered getting a restraining order? The thought had crossed my mind, but it felt so final. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Plus, the kids. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Mom, Dad's here. He's making a scene. Please come home. My heart raced as I showed Carol the message. I have to go, I said, already gathering my things. I'm coming with you, Carol insisted, leaving no room for argument. We rushed to my house, and I could hear the shouting before we even reached the front door. Inside, Frank was pacing the living room, his face red with anger. Claire and Mike stood together, looking both defiant and scared. Frank, I shouted, pushing past him to stand between him and the kids. What do you think you're doing? He whirled on me, eyes blazing. What am I doing? What are you doing, poisoning my children against me? You did that all on your own. Mike spat, his fists clenched at his sides. Frank took a menacing step forward, but Carol moved quickly, placing herself beside me. I think you need to leave, Frank, she said coolly. He laughed bitterly. Oh, so you've got your little support group now, Susan? Think you're strong enough to keep me away from my family? We're not your family anymore, Claire said, her voice shaking but determined. You lost that right when you chose her over us. Frank's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little? That's enough, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. Get out, Frank, now, or I'm calling the police. For a moment, I thought he might actually strike me, but then, deflating slightly, he backed towards the door. This isn't over, Susan. You can't keep my kids from me forever. As the door slammed behind him, the house fell into an eerie silence. I turned to Claire and Mike, pulling them into a tight hug. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? They shook their heads, but I could feel them trembling against me. Mom, Mike said, his voice muffled against my shoulder, I think we need to do something more. He's not going to stop. I pulled back, looking at their faces, so young, yet bearing the weight of adult concerns. You're right, I said softly. We can't live like this anymore. Carol approached, her expression grave. Susan, I hate to say it, but I think it's time to consider legal action. A restraining order, maybe even full custody. The thought made my stomach churn, but I knew she was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my children. Just then my phone rang. It was my mother, Evelyn. Susan, she said without preamble, I've been thinking, you need to confront this Diane woman directly, get the full story from her. I blinked, taken aback. Mom, I don't think. Listen to me, Evelyn interrupted. Frank's not going to tell you the truth, but this woman, she might. And you need all the ammunition you can get if you're going to fight him. As I hung up, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination settling over me. My mother's words echoed in my head, mingling with the memory of Frank's threats and my children's frightened faces. I looked at Claire and Mike, then at Carol. They were all watching me, waiting to see what I'd do next. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision that would change everything. Okay, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm going to find Diane. It's time to get the whole truth, once and for all. My heart pounded as I stood outside the small cafe where I'd arranged to meet Diane. Part of me still couldn't believe I was doing this, but I knew it was necessary. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. I spotted her immediately. Blonde, beautiful, and looking as nervous as I felt. As I approached, her eyes widened in recognition. Susan? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Diane. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of our shared connection to Frank hanging heavy between us. Finally, Diane spoke. I suppose you're here to tell me to stay away from your husband, she said, a hint of defiance in her tone. I couldn't help but laugh, though it came out bitter. Ex-husband, I corrected, and no, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I need the truth. Diane's bravado faltered. The truth about what? Everything, I said simply. Frank's lies, the missing money, all of it. I need to know what I'm up against. She looked away, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. I don't know if I can. Please, I interrupted, leaning forward. My children's future is at stake here. I need to understand what's really going on. Something in my voice must have reached her, because when Diane looked back at me, her eyes were filled with unexpected compassion. All right, she sighed, but you're not going to like what I have to say. Over the next hour, Diane painted a picture of Frank that was both familiar and shockingly new. She told me about his grand promises, his manipulative charm, and the web of lies he'd spun to keep us both in the dark. He told me you were separated, Diane admitted, shame coloring her cheeks, that you were just staying together for the kids. I had no idea. I felt a surge of anger, not at Diane, but at Frank. He's been playing us both, I realized aloud. Diane nodded, then hesitated before reaching into her purse. There's something else you should see, she said, pulling out a stack of papers. As I flipped through them, my blood ran cold. Bank statements, property deeds, offshore accounts, all in Frank's name, all hidden from me during our divorce. He's been siphoning money for years, Diane explained quietly. I only found out recently when I overheard him on the phone with his lawyer. I sat back, my mind reeling. This was so much worse than I'd imagined. Not only had Frank betrayed our family emotionally, but he'd also been systematically stealing our financial future. Why are you showing me this? I asked, my voice shaking. Diane's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of regret and determination. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I'm done being his puppet. I want out, just like you. In that moment, I saw Diane not as my rival, but as another victim of Frank's manipulation. An unexpected feeling of solidarity washed over me. What are you going to do? Diane asked softly. I took a deep breath, my resolve hardening. I'm going to fight, I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. For my kids, for myself, and for every penny he's stolen from us. Diane nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. Good. And if you need a witness to his deception, well, you know where to find me. As I left the cafe, my mind was racing with possibilities. I had evidence now, real proof of Frank's deceit. But I also knew that using it would mean war, a messy, painful battle that would affect not just me, but my children as well. Standing on the sidewalk, clutching the damning papers to my chest, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could play it safe, try to negotiate quietly with Frank, or I could go nuclear, exposing everything and fighting for what was rightfully ours. The choice loomed before me, each path fraught with its own dangers and potential rewards. But as I thought of Claire's dreams of college, of Mike's determination to become a lawyer, I knew what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. Mom, I said when she answered, my voice steady and determined, I need you to recommend a good lawyer. It's time to take Frank down. The day of Claire's graduation party arrived, and with it, a storm of emotions I wasn't prepared for. As I arranged platters of food and hung the last of the decorations, my mind raced with everything that had transpired over the past weeks. The confrontation with Frank, the revelations from Diane, the weight of the legal battle looming ahead, it all swirled together, threatening to overwhelm me. "Mom, you okay?" Claire's voice cut through my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, resplendent in her new dress, concern etched on her face. I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetie. Just making sure everything's perfect for your big day." She didn't look convinced, but let it slide. As guests began to arrive, family, friends, Claire's classmates, I felt a growing sense of unease. Frank hadn't responded to my invitation, and part of me hoped he wouldn't show up at all. But of course, that was too much to ask for. I was in the kitchen refilling a punch bowl when I heard his voice boom through the house. "Where's my graduate?" My hands shook, nearly spilling the punch. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and walked into the living room. Frank stood in the center, all smiles and charm, as if he hadn't been absent for months, as if he hadn't stolen from us, lied to us, betrayed us in every way possible. "Frank," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I didn't think you'd come." He turned, his smile faltering for just a moment. "Come on, Susie, you didn't think I'd miss my little girl's big day, did you?" Before I could respond, Claire appeared, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Celebrating you, of course." Frank moved to hug her, but Claire stepped back. "I didn't invite you," she said, her voice cold. Frank's facade cracked, anger flashing in his eyes. "Now listen here, young lady." "No, you listen," I interrupted, stepping between them. "This is Claire's day. You don't get to waltz in here and ruin it." The room had gone quiet, all eyes on our family drama unfolding. I could see Mike in the corner, fists clenched, ready to jump in if needed. Frank laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. "Oh, that's rich coming from you, Susan. Turning my own children against me. What lies have you been feeding them, huh?" "The only liar here is you, Frank." I turned, shocked to see Diane standing in the doorway. She walked in, her head held high, ignoring the whispers that erupted around us. Frank's face paled. "Diane, what are you?" "I'm here to set things right," she said, coming to stand beside me. "To tell the truth about everything you've done." Frank's charm evaporated, replaced by a desperate anger. "You don't know what you're talking about, both of you. You're just bitter, jealous. Enough!" Claire's shout silenced the room. She stood tall, tears in her eyes, but determination on her face. "I've heard enough. Dad, I want you to leave, now." Frank looked around wildly, seeking an ally and finding none. His gaze landed on me, filled with a hatred that made me flinch. "This isn't over," he snarled. "You think you can turn everyone against me? I'll destroy you, Susan. I'll take everything." As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I felt my knees go weak. But before I could fall, I felt arms around me. Claire on one side, Mike on the other, holding me up. The room buzzed with shocked conversations, but all I could focus on was my children's steady presence. We'd done it. We'd stood up to Frank together. But as the adrenaline faded, fear crept in. Frank's threat echoed in my ears. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a war. And I knew, looking at my children's faces, that the real fight was yet to come. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart. We'd weathered this storm, but at what cost? And what would Frank do next, now that he had nothing left to lose? As the party continued around us, subdued but determined, I clung to my children, wondering if I had the strength for the battle ahead. But looking at their faces, Claire's quiet resolve, Mike's protective stance, I knew I had no choice. For them, I would find the strength. For them, I would fight with everything I had. The days following Claire's graduation party blurred together in a whirlwind of emotions and activity. Frank's dramatic exit and threats lingered in the air like a toxic cloud, poisoning what should have been a time of celebration. I found myself jumping at every phone call, every knock at the door, wondering if this would be the moment Frank made good on his promise to destroy us. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when everything came to a head. I was at my desk trying to focus on a web design project when my phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Mom, there's a moving truck outside Dad's house. What's going on?" My heart raced as I dialed Frank's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Panic rising, I called my lawyer. "Susan," he said, his voice grave, "I've just received notice. Frank's filed for bankruptcy and is contesting the divorce settlement. He's claiming you hid assets and manipulated him into an unfair agreement." The room spun around me. "That's ridiculous. He's the one who—" "I know," my lawyer interrupted, "but he's playing hardball. We need to move fast." As I hung up, another text came through, this time from Mike. Mom, Dad's here. He's taking stuff from the garage. Says it's his. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and raced out the door. The short drive to our old house felt like an eternity. When I pulled up, I saw Frank loading boxes into a battered pickup truck, Mike standing nearby with clenched fists. Frank, I shouted, slamming my car door. What do you think you're doing? He turned, a smirk on his face that made my blood boil. Just taking what's rightfully mine, Susie. You should be familiar with that concept. You have no right, I hissed, stepping between him and the truck. The court, Frank sneered, is going to hear all about how you've been hiding money, turning the kids against me. How does it feel, Susan, to have your whole world turned upside down? Mike moved to my side, his voice shaking with anger. Stop it, Dad. Just stop. Frank's face softened for a moment, looking at our son. Mike, you don't understand. Your mother... I understand perfectly, Mike interrupted. I understand that you're a liar and a thief. The raw hurt that flashed across Frank's face almost made me feel sorry for him. Almost. You've made your choice, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Now leave, before I call the police. For a moment, I thought he might lash out. But then, deflating, Frank climbed into the truck. This isn't over, he muttered as he drove away. As the dust settled, I felt the adrenaline drain from my body, leaving me shaky and weak. Mike wrapped an arm around me, supporting me as we walked back to the house. Inside, we found Claire and my mother, Evelyn, waiting anxiously. I called Grandma, Claire explained, her eyes wide with worry. Evelyn stepped forward, enveloping me in a hug. Oh, Susan, she murmured. I'm so sorry you're going through this. As we all sat around the kitchen table, the reality of our situation sank in. Frank's actions threatened everything. Our home, Claire's college fund, our very stability. What are we going to do? Claire asked, her voice small. I looked around at my family, my brave, resilient children, my supportive mother, and felt a surge of determination. We're going to fight, I said firmly. Together. Evelyn reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Susan, I've been thinking, why don't you and the kids move back into the family home? It's paid off, plenty of room. It would give you some breathing space while you sort this out. The offer stunned me. Mom, I couldn't possibly. You can and you will, Evelyn insisted. It's time this family stood together against Frank's bullying. As I looked at the hopeful faces of my children, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Frank might have declared war, but he had underestimated the strength of our family bond. Okay, I said, nodding slowly. Okay, let's do it. In that moment, surrounded by love and support, I knew that no matter what Frank threw at us next, we would face it head on. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, I truly believed we could win. 6 months after moving into my mother's family home, I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the warm chatter of women who had become my lifeline. What had started as informal coffee meetings to discuss our shared experiences with manipulative ex-partners had blossomed into a full-fledged support group. Today, we were celebrating our first official meeting as a registered nonprofit organization. As I poured coffee for Carol, my eyes drifted to the window where I could see Claire helping Mike with his law school applications. My heart swelled with pride. Despite everything Frank had put us through, my children had not just survived but thrived. The doorbell rang, and I excused myself to answer it. My breath caught in my throat when I saw Frank standing there, looking older and more haggard than I remembered. Susan, he said, his voice lacking its usual bravado, can we talk? For a moment, I was tempted to slam the door in his face, but the strength I'd found over these past months steadied me. 5 minutes, Frank. That's all you get. We stepped onto the porch, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lawn. I heard about your support group, Frank began, shuffling his feet, and about Mike's plans for law school. I wanted to say I'm proud of you all. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Frank sighed heavily. I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy too. I realize now how much damage I've done. To you, to the kids, to myself. Why are you telling me this, Frank? I asked, my voice steady. He met my eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse there. Because I owe you an apology, a real one. What I did was unforgivable, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that I see it now. All of it. I felt a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lift from my shoulders. Thank you for saying that, Frank. It means more than you know. He nodded, then reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is for the kids. It's not much, but it's a start. I want to make things right, if I can. As I took the envelope, our fingers brushed, and I was struck by how little I felt. The anger, the hurt, the bitterness, it had all faded, replaced by a calm strength I'd never known I possessed. You can start by being there for them, I said. Really being there. No more games, no more lies. Frank's eyes welled with tears. I'd like that, if they'll let me. As he turned to leave, I called out, Frank? He paused, looking back. I forgive you, not for you, but for me, for our family. The smile he gave me was small but genuine. As I watched him walk away, I realized this was the closure I'd been seeking all along. Back inside, I was greeted by the concerned faces of my support group. Everything okay? Carol asked, squeezing my arm. I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. Everything's perfect. Later that evening, as Claire, Mike, and I sat around the dinner table with my mother, I looked at the faces of the people I loved most in the world. We had weathered the storm together, emerging stronger and more united than ever. I have an announcement, I said, my heart full. I've decided to go back to school. I want to get my degree in social work. The table erupted in cheers and congratulations. As Claire hugged me tight and Mike grinned with pride, I caught my mother's eye. She nodded, a knowing smile on her face. In that moment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. Frank's betrayal had nearly broken us, but in piecing ourselves back together, we had created something even stronger. A family bound not just by blood, but by choice, by resilience, and by an unshakable love. As I looked around at my children, my mother, and thought of the women in my support group, I realized that this right here, was my happy ending. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect resolution, but something real and hard-won, a life rebuilt on my own terms, surrounded by love and support. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited about what the future held.